going to hit record. And
Okay.
I want to thank you, Roxanne, for being here and leading us in this mindfulness exercise. And we're very grateful to have you.
Okay.
So go for it.
Okay, so I think most of you know who I am, but for those of you who don't, I'm Roxanne. I just wanted to share a little bit of my mindfulness journey and what brought me here today. I've been doing mindfulness without really understanding that I was doing mindfulness on and off for years in bits and pieces. And then slowly as the term came out and became more, something that we hear in everyday society, I started to do more and more with my students. And my co-teacher and I actually applied for a grant and went to Savu Savu, Fiji for 2 weeks to study mindfulness, which was an awesome way to really kick off my official mindfulness journey. And from there, that was based on Jon Kabat-Zinn's principle of the MBSR, the mindfulness-based stress reduction. And he is really kind of like the guru in my mind of mindfulness. He started it with the University of Massachusetts. And the mindfulness-based stress reduction is an 8-week course that it's very intensive, that you go to class once a week for like 3 hours at a time, but you have to do a lot of practice in between. And mindfulness eating is one of those practices that we did, among a lot of other things. And Cindy was my partner at the MBSR course. So that's Cindy. From that, both Cindy and I were educators in New Milford. We decided to continue our journey with the mindful schools. So we're both taking a essential teaching course right now. And that, along with our MSBR course, are our 2 prerequisites for taking a year-long mindfulness program that will certify us as mindful instructors. And so you guys are helping us along since we don't have children anymore in our classroom. And Cindy, anytime you'd like to jump in and help out, please do. So I wanted to just start out with a very simple definition of mindfulness, one that I would use with my students in the classroom. And I would start with just noticing what is happening right now. Whether it's a good feeling, a bad feeling, whatever it is, just noticing what's happening right now. And when you think about that, Jon Kabat-Zinn, who I mentioned earlier, his definition is to pay attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So that's that simplified definition with a little bit more meat to it. So paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And I want to just say something now, which I probably wouldn't say at the beginning, Cindy, is that when you think about mindfulness, everybody thinks that it's about all these great moments in our life that we stop and smell the roses. It's not. It's about all the things in our life. It's about that moment when anxiety is starting to overtake you. It's when emotions, and it's not saying not to have those emotions. It's saying to notice those emotions and think about what's happening. And with our children in school, especially those with high anxiety, we want to teach them to notice when that anxiety is creeping in, when they're feeling like they can't do the work and there's frustration, so that they can stop, think about it, and maybe use a strategy that we're teaching them to help them overcome that moment. So mindfulness can be so many things. It's just about noticing all the time what we're doing. So today, we're going to do a little mindfulness eating activity, but I'm going to start out with just a centering activity. I'm going to ring my bells and just listen until the bells are completely done ringing. And just, if you can close your eyes, if you're comfortable closing your eyes, please do so. If not, just let your eyes fall down in front of you in a soft gaze. And just listen to the bells until they stop ringing. And I want you to just fall into a natural breathing rhythm and continue doing that until I ring the bells a second time. And then we'll slowly open our eyes and start our activity. And just sit up straight so your spine is straight. Using your own natural rhythm to breathe in and out, nothing forced. paying attention to your breath as it comes in and as it goes out. Just noticing what you notice. Maybe coolness in your nostrils as you're breathing air in, warmth as you're breathing out. And if a thought comes into your head, acknowledge it, and then just focus back on your breathing. Slowly start to open your eyes. This is something that I like to do in school. It helps center the children. Sometimes the beginning of a lesson, sometimes I'll do it in the middle of a lesson if we seem to be unfocused. Or sometimes if they're coming in after recess, it's a good way to center them and bring them back. And if you ask them about it, they almost always tell you that I feel calmer, I feel more focused, I feel better and ready to learn. So what we're going to do is each of you should take your food item that you have. And in a regular situation, we would all be sitting in the same room and not social distancing. And I would pass out the food item to you so that we would all have the same item. But today is a little bit different, and I think it should work just fine. So take your item of food and just place it in the palm of your hand. And then just notice it. Look at it. And even if it's an everyday piece of food that you look or eat every day, just look at it and really look at it differently. And notice its shape. Touch it and notice its texture. You can smell it. But we're just noticing, using our senses. You can listen to it. When you're done noticing it on the palm of your hand, just slowly open your mouth and just place it on your tongue. Please try not to chew it yet or eat it. Again, you're noticing with your mouth, the texture of it. Does it awaken any of your other senses other than taste? Think about the food in your mouth and think about, again, the texture, the taste, and then slowly start to chew it. Notice, is it soft and squishy, hard, chewy? Does the taste change when you're chewing it? And maybe notice any other sensations in your body as you're chewing it and the taste is starting to spread. When you feel like you're finished with your chewing, go ahead and swallow it. And notice what you feel now. What does your mouth feel like? What taste do you have now? So to share a few things, I don't know how many of you were able to watch the video clip that Deb sent out with the invitation of the children. They weren't actually doing the entire mindfulness, but there were little clips of what they saw and what they thought. And I really thought it was interesting at the beginning because when they talked about kids and how they eat, they said, oh, I just shove it in my mouth. I devour it. And when you think about that, they're not tasting it. And I think as adults, so many of us are so busy every day with work and all the things we're doing in our life or running from one place to another that we are shoving food into our mouth. And we're not really stopping to taste it and think about what we're doing. When we do stop and taste it, what happens? What are some of the things you noticed? And feel free to jump in.
So I had a grape and I noticed the texture on the outside was very different than the texture on the inside, which I had never noticed before because I devour my food.
Interesting, yes.
I love my food. No, I too actually had a grape, and it's like that soury taste on the outside and cold and sweet and refreshing on the inside.
Very good, interesting.
Mine was an apple, and I had forgotten how sweet an apple is. You know, it's not just crunchy, but it was so sweet that I really enjoyed it.
I like that you enjoyed it.
Mhm.
I had my mother's recipe of pumpkin bread that was frozen, and I enjoyed that. It melted in my mouth as I sat there holding it.
Which isn't something you typically would do with bread either. You would chew it and swallow, so that's interesting.
I felt like
I got all the flavor
activating.
from my sea salt turbinado sugar dark chocolate almonds. I popped them in my mouth, but I could actually like taste the sea salt and feel it on my tongue and the sugar pieces and the chocolate.
That sounds like a great one to start with, Cindy. Well, almond, I like that. Anyone else have thoughts? Something they noticed?
I also had an apple, and I found the texture between the skin and then the inside and the sweetness that came, but at first it was really tart. And I don't know if I've ever really noticed how tart and then the sweet, and sort of having it spread out over that time of chewing.
Did that awaken any other senses?
Yeah, well, I felt like my mouth was very watery, and I was sort of like, okay, I'm starting to salivate a little bit more and wanting more of that. But I also felt like I don't know what it was that I could smell, but I felt like I could smell more of the fruit, for lack of a better way to explain
That's
it.
really exactly what it is. You're smelling something that you probably never smelled before because you're eating it so quickly.
I don't
So
know.
the purpose, oh, go ahead. Hi, Pam, I didn't see
Hi,
you.
Roxanne. I don't know if you heard me before, but I felt I had just a reason, and I felt like the glands activating on one side of my mouth, and then it kind of spread as I moved it a little bit. And yeah, it was just really different to feel that because I also eat very fast usually.
A raisin is what I typically do this activity with because even though it's very common and it seems kind of boring, there's so much you can learn about raisin when you're studying it. What about when you were looking at your food on your hand? Did you notice anything different that you hadn't noticed before?
A grape is like a moon or a plant of a like space. There were holes and dents and discolorization, and I've always just thought of it as a perfectly oval purple fruit. It's not at all.
I like that. How about that raisin, Pam? Did you look at it differently than you did a raisin before?
Well, definitely, yeah. I mean, you always know that it's a wrinkly thing, but you know, you don't really look at the pattern of the wrinkles, or unless you're really taking that time. Yeah.
I actually looked at a blackberry. I don't know if you can see it. I have another one here.
Mhm.
And when you really look at a blackberry, again, like Peter was saying, there's some imperfections, but there's also some symmetry to it. You know, each little, it looks like a bunch of little grapes all put together when you look at it closely. So different. And again, I felt a little tartness at first too, and then sweetness. So why do you think it's a good idea? Hi, Cam, how are you? To
Hi.
do a mindful eating activity like this?
It slows you down.
Yeah, it slows you down.
hmm So, thinking about doing this, I'm going to give you each a little assignment. Choose to do it if you want to. If you don't, that's fine. Pick a meal that you eat each day, and a meal that you can take some time with, and it might not even be the entire meal. So, like if you're picking dinner, you might pick one thing on your plate. If it's breakfast, if you're having granola or yogurt with granola or something like that, it might be easier to do. And slow yourself down and take time and just look at your food first. Prepare your food and look at it. And really take some time and notice it and smell it and listen, because sometimes, like if you pour milk on cigarettes, you might hear something. You might hear a sound, or you might think you do. And then slowly take a bite. And that first bite, just savor in your mouth and let it just sit there first before you start to chew or swallow. And try to do that through the meal or the portion of the meal that you chose. Go very, very slowly and see how you feel when you finished. And see maybe if you are more satisfied by eating less. They always tell us that if we eat slower and let our body and our system catch up, that we might not eat as much, which I would love to eat less myself.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this exercise or?
Rox, I can speak from experience in doing a 3-day mindfulness retreat up in Massachusetts. So every meal there was a mindful meal, and it was completely silent for 3 days. And I've never appreciated food as much as I did during that time. And also I did eat a lot less and felt satisfied and enjoyed my meal a lot more too.
Thank you. A testimonial, and I didn't even set her up for that.
My mom used to do that. She always ate like super slow, and we'd actually kind of like make fun of her because sometimes we'd be out somewhere and it would be an incredible experience, like the longest dinner or lunch you ever had. But, you know, now she's been proven right by science and history, even though that was many years ago. So, yeah, it's a good thing.
Great.
That's actually interesting because if one eats like that, when I eat like that, I should say, it actually helps me later not feel so bloated and full.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true.
Nasty.
Roxanne, I'm rarely hungry, and I've noticed that. I just like to eat. I love the crunch in my mouth.
Me too.
I snack a lot, and I'd love to stop doing that because I'll go and reach for something just because I feel like I want it and need it, which I obviously don't because I'm not really hungry, but it's more of a want something in my mouth texture or rhythm. I don't know. So I'll try it when I feel that, and we'll see.
I agree with that. I like to chew a lot.
Yeah.
I think that's something I find that if I have a meal that doesn't have a crunch to it, I can be full, but I still crave something to crunch. So I always
Yes.
crunch into my meal on purpose because I know I need that crunch. So maybe you just need the crunch of it, Pam. Or maybe your body's telling you to eat because you really need to. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think I'll try to portion and go slow. I'm going to take those 3 crackers and be very mindful as I eat them and see if that works, because I certainly don't need to eat a half a bag of something, you know.
Well, that's always a good thing too, because if you take the 3 crackers and you put them aside in your little bowl or on your little plate and make a presentation, and then you slowly, slowly eat those 3 crackers, they might be enough instead of that whole big handful, or have the bag next to you where you
Right.
have to take out.
As I'm working or as I'm doing something, I find myself doing that, and that I'll try to focus more on the food.
I think I'm definitely guilty of that. I will sit there, especially now that I'm doing distance learning.
Yes.
A lot of teachers on, and I'm at the computer all the time, and it's really easy to just pull a bag of chips and eat it for lunch or something, a cracker, whatever. So I too am guilty of that. Um, I just wanted to share a little bit more with you before we end today, and then if you guys would like to do another session, we could do another mindfulness activity on another day. But I wanted to talk to you, especially, well, for all of us, but I think I'm focusing a little bit more on educators and working with children, and it really could be also, when you think about it, working with clients, or even when you're instructing at boot camp, Deb, you have different people in front of you, and thinking about the concentration and all of those things. So one of the other interesting uh, parts of the history of mindfulness is there's a meditation teacher scholar called Shinzen Young. I think that's how you pronounce it, Cindy. And this person really brought a threefold skill set into thinking about what mindfulness helps us with. And one of it is concentration power, sensory clarity, and equanimity. And when you think about that, you're stopping, you're thinking about the moment, whether you're feeling joy, happiness, you can't describe what you're feeling anxiety, frustration, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling pain because you're doing an exercise routine, but really acknowledging what you're going through and thinking of strategies or ways that can help you refocus. So for me, like when I'm at a workout, I really focus on my breathing. If it's something really intense and I don't think I can make it through all the reps that we're doing, I really focus on my breathing, and it takes away from whatever part of my body is hurting at that moment. If it's one of my students having an anxiety attack, which many of them do, if they, again, going back to their breathing, and we've worked so much with our breathing, I've watched them, they'll close their eyes, and some of them like to find a mudra, something to do with their hands, or place it on their knees, and they'll just start breathing, and you can see them, they'll close their eyes, and you can see them just coming down, and they're to refocus and come back. And it doesn't always, and it takes lots of practice, but again, really it can help with that concentration power. And we did some of the sensory piece today, really thinking about our senses, really thinking about how our senses help us register different emotions, anxiety, frustration, anger, and then really balancing all of our experiences and knowing that they're not all going to be wonderful experiences. We are going to have times that we don't feel good, that we feel anger, frustration, and being mindful of those moments as well. There's a balance here. It's not all about our wonderful, great experiences. It's about life. Life has all kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
Any thoughts? I know that's just a really quick little thing, and what it boils down to a lot of time is response versus reaction. So if you're really frustrated, your first reaction might be to swear at someone or call them out. But if you have a mindful moment and you say, I'm really angry at this person, maybe in your Zoom call that's going on, and you could get to the point a lot quicker. But if you think about it and you're mindful, maybe your response will be different than your reaction will be, because you'll be able to say, okay, I understand what you're talking about. Can we wrap this up or something, rather than calling them something else, or some rude remark come out of your mouth. But any thoughts?
Agree. We need to take a pause before anything comes out of our mouth and listen to ourself.
I've heard it as having a speed bump between your brain and your mouth.
I like that. Pause and speed bump.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Well, Roxanne, more for your time, and all of our participants. I know you have things to do, but we really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. And I hope we all take these principles and use them in our day-to-day, not only for our mindful eating, but our mindful speaking and engaging. So thank you.
So try to do a mindful eating, and hopefully we could come back and maybe Cindy and I could collaborate and do the next mindfulness activity together.
Great.
Love that.
That'd be great.
Thank you, Roxanne.
All right.
Thank
Thank you
you,
guys.
Roxanne.
Have a wonderful
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, Rox.
Well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Bye.